Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of your favorite current affairs program, 60 Minutes Nigeria. My name is Egosa Agmalao. On today's program, we'll be looking at a new phenomenon in the electoral process of this country. And it has to do with the inconclusive elections. It's becoming a problem that needs to be resolved. So today we're looking at avoiding inconclusive elections. Should this phenomenon be allowed to stay or otherwise? As we speak in Adamawa State, the inconclusive governorship election is underway. We understand the process commenced 8 a.m. today and is expected to end by 2 p.m. Before today, we had inconclusive elections in 5 other states already concluded now. We have in Sokoto State, of course, we have Tambuwa, the incumbent governor, winning that state. In Bauchi, we also have in Benue, we had inconclusive elections in Kanu, in Plateau, and of course, today in Adamawa. The INEC officer has explained that election were declared inconclusive due to the discontinuation of the use of card reader midway into elections in some of these states, and also other issues of overvoting and violence. He posited on the premise of the amended Electoral Act of 2010, he said, in compliance with the margin of lead principle derived from sections 26 and 53 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, INEC has the power to declare elections inconclusive. We have with me very eminent personalities. Let me introduce a former Attorney General of Edo State, Barrister Harry Idahagbo. Nice to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, viewers.
We also have with us a very seasoned politician, Joseph Osagede. Nice to have with us today.
Thank you. Always a pleasure being here.
We have with us a law lecturer and a legal practitioner in Edo State, Barrister Sonny Daudu. Nice to have you with us today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, like I said, it's happening right now in Adamawa. The inconclusive election is being conducted. We must have a conclusive election, hopefully, by 2 p.m. today. Let me start with Idahagbo. Are you comfortable with these evolving phenomena of inconclusive election?
Well, I don't think any right-thinking Nigerian will be comfortable with the evolving terminology of inconclusive elections. Last week, Saturday, I had the privilege of being here with 2 other learned friends of mine, and I posited that the term inconclusive election is not contained in the Electoral Act. Section 26 of the Electoral 2010 as amended did not use the word inconclusive election. So that terminology is unknown to law. What is known to law is runoff election or a rerun election. Okay. And the circumstances under which a rerun or a runoff election could be called is also clearly stated in the Electoral Act. Yeah. But unfortunately, the proliferation of inconclusive election using INEC's terminology now in this 2019 election, general election, got so widespread that the political class people are now insinuating that elections were declared inconclusive in order to favor the ruling political party. Okay. This certainly, in my humble opinion, is not correct. I think it has to do more or less with the incompetence of INEC. Okay. And their lack of preparedness to conduct elections in the country. And they've been roundly condemned both by members of the ruling party and members of the, and indeed all active politicians in the country roundly condemn them. So it is not a concept that should be welcomed by any Nigerian.
Okay.
The processes for the conduct of an election is very clear in the Electoral Act. Once all the preliminaries have been complied with and there is voting, the presiding officer has the legal duty to declare the result at each polling unit.
Okay.
And if that is done, then of course you move to the next level, which is the Ward Collation Center, where the collation officer also has a duty to declare it. Okay. And if you take it that up to the highest level, in the case of the presidential, by the National Collation Officer. Yeah. So once an election has been conducted, logically it follows that the result must be announced at the various polling units. Okay. So the job of the collation officer is to collate and announce. Anybody having any issue with the processes, what you do is to go to the tribunal. And mercifully, that's what the Osun Election Tribunal, that is the
has happened,
of their judgment now. Okay. That the INEC officials there did not have the power to unilaterally cancel results. Once result is declared, it becomes the baby of the tribunal to hear arguments on both sides and pronounce on whether the legality or otherwise of the result. It is not for INEC. The INEC took on the judicial function in cancelling that result, and that's what led to the nullification of Oyetola's election in Oyo State. So I hope, Osun State, I hope INEC will take a cue from that and ensure that this spate of inconclusive elections, they are nipped in the bud in subsequent elections in our country.
Okay, thank you, Henry Dagbon, for your comments. Let's get the thoughts of Joseph Osagede, who is also a very seasoned politician as well. Looking at this issue of inconclusive elections, what's your take?
Well, on a serious note, I hope this discussion today will not be declared inconclusive. Okay,
I can assure you that today's discussion will not become inconclusive. It will be conclusive.
Right. Yes. Now, to go to the main point.
Okay.
I think that we have two major issues here.
Okay.
First, INEC is not being seen as an unbiased umpire. Two, the law does not provide adequately for such matters that could lead to inconclusive elections. We are told that you must score 25% of the valid votes in an area to be declared winner as per presidential elections. We are also told that in any gubernatorial election, you must win certain number of local governments and you must win certain number of votes to be declared the winner. How come when you are now looking at the elections in a certain area, why don't we say if the areas where elections could not hold or where you think there were problems, if it's less than 25% of the total votes that we are expecting from that state, if it's a state election, or 25% of total votes we are expecting from that constituency, if it's a federal constituency election, why don't we say, look, if it's less than 25%, declare a winner? So that lack of clear vision from the National Assembly having to pass a bill that will put it into the act, into the Electoral Act, that if there's any problem, any area, and if the total number of persons who collected their PVCs, not number of registered voters as INEC is making us to understand now. They tell you 2,500 registered voters are in this area, and that will that can determine who actually is the winner of the election, because the difference between the one who is leading and the one who is leading is not up to that 2,005. Why don't we say if the total area that we had crisis, if the people collected PVCs there, if they are less than 25% of the total votes in that constituency, then the matter should be regarded as non-issue, so you can declare a result. I think that before we leave here, we have a learned gentleman. Yeah. We are, as Nigerians, we can propose a bill here today and send to the National Assembly that if less than 25% of people collected PVCs from any area is affected in an election, they should still go ahead and declare a winner. Now, having said that, I also mentioned the fact that INEC doesn't seem to be an unbiased umpire. How can INEC, you have 4 years to prepare for a presidential election, for instance. You have the same 4 years to prepare for gubernatorial elections. And at the tail end, you won't find one INEC staff on ground on that day when people are casting their votes. Not one INEC staff. They are all ad hoc staff. So these are people who can, it's like a man who is preparing to host top dignitaries. And you invite them to your house, and you leave your wife, you leave your children, you leave your housemate, you go and bring urchins and street people to come and cook and serve them in their dirty form. How do you expect them to look at you? INEC has all the resources to employ people that they can train to do what they want them to do. But because they leave them to their own minds, these people are prone to being induced. And once they do that, they do it in the name of INEC. So a young man comes out to say, oh, I'm canceling the result of this area simply because it has not gone the way of those who asked him to do it for them. And so he cancels it and says, look, I'll give you another chance to go and try again. So why don't INEC train its own staff? At least one person in each polling unit should be a truly trained INEC staff who will be in charge. So if there's any mistake, you can hold INEC responsible. That's my take.
Okay, thank you, Joseph Osagede. I hope you're enjoying the discussion. We'll get the thoughts of Sonny Daudu. What's your take on this scenario?
Well, thank you very much. My very senior and the other panelists have laid the foundation.
Okay.
But let me look at it from my perspective. The concept or the issue of inconclusive elections,
yes,
is an unfortunate concept that has now found its expression in our electoral process. It found its expression in our electoral process based on the electoral guidelines,
okay,
designed by INEC in the conduct of elections. But without mincing words, I have argued in some fora that guidelines overreaches the provisions of the Constitution and overreaches the Electoral Act itself, because the Constitution have actually laid foundation on how elections should be conducted and how candidates should be emerged.
Okay.
Now, why did I say the guidelines overreaches the provisions of the Constitution? Political parties, political democracy, electoral process, and democracy itself is founded on the Constitution. Consequence upon that, the Electoral Act was made pursuant to the provisions of the Constitution. So, in declaration of a candidate as winner, the Electoral Act also subject that to the provisions of the Constitution. The Electoral Act only enabled the INEC to make guidelines, but these guidelines they have made now, to me, they are contradictory or counterproductive to the provisions of the Constitution. I will give my explanation. The electoral process or electoral system adopted by any country must be premised on the Constitution. And our Constitution recognizes the first past the post system or the plurality system. What that simply seems to mean is that a candidate that wins the majority votes in an election is declared winner. The only condition the Constitution contemplated is a situation where such a candidate must score at least 25% in 2/3 of states when they affect the presidency of federal elections,
okay,
and 25% of 2/3 of local governments when they affect states,
okay,
if you're a governor,
yeah,
or as the case may be, the federal capital candidate affects wards.
okay.
You must have scored 25% of 2/3. Now, the unfortunate incident of introducing the electoral guideline,
yes,
was that it introduced a new concept in which the electoral guideline now makes a provision that for a candidate to be declared a winner, the difference between the leading party must outweigh the number of regular voters in areas where elections were not held or where elections were cancelled. That vitiates the provisions of the Electoral Act itself and vitiates the provisions of the Constitution, because the Constitution has already given a condition upon which a candidate should be declared. Now, assuming without considering that these provisions of the guidelines and other guidelines do not overreach the Constitution, as I argued.
Yes.
I have also argued that the applications of those guidelines also are undemocratic. What do I mean by that? Elections have been held in a particular area. Let's say in Ward 1 of one local government.
Yes.
Elections have been held there. Results has been declared from the presiding officer.
Okay.
We already know that Party A won that unit, for instance. He moves to the area coalition officer. We already know that Party B also won that place. Now, because of already being aware that Party A or B has won the area, talks now come in and share the results.
Okay.
Then INEC will now base his calculation on the number of registered voters in the area. I have argued that is wrong.
How do you mean?
What I mean is that election has been held, results have been gotten from that unit. You already know the results there. So you cannot tie, you're not declaring a candidate based on the number of registered voters there, because the results have already been known, even though tall. Also, the accreditation has already been known, the number of persons you accredited, either by the manual or by the electronics. You already know the number of persons you accredited in that zone. So if you are declaring a candidate inconclusive, it should be based on the result that you cancelled, if any. Now that would be different if, for instance, elections were not held in a particular zone at all, for exigencies, emergency, or contravening circumstances that do not allow election to be held. Then, of course, you can base your not declaring a result on the number of registered voters in the area, because elections were not held. So you cannot determine the number of persons who are going to come out to vote. So you can base your not declaring results on the total number of registered voters in the area. But not areas where election has been held, and you decide to cancel them. What we are seeing situation is that sometimes they decide to cancel some areas where one political party is leading, who perhaps they do not want the person to win. They cancel the areas. And for you to now declare a candidate, you now say you base it on the number of registered voters in it. Is it the number of registered voters in the area that came out to vote from the result you have gotten? It's a different scenario. When you now apply those two scenarios together, you get it wrong. Because one scenario is elections were not held there at all. Then you base your not declaring results on the number of registered voters in that area, because elections were not held. But where election has been held, you cannot base your not declaration of result on the number of registered voters there. My argument is that even though results have been cancelled, the person should be declared winner, because you cancel results, voided results, rejected results are part of the process. Whether results were voided, results were cancelled, results were rejected, they are part of the election. Election has been conducted in that area. You cannot use that election that has been conducted. It's just a person wrote an exam. He failed. He failed a course. You now say that because he failed the course, he had failed all the whole results. No, it's that course. If that course will make the student to move to the next level, he will still move. You shouldn't say because he studied that course, he has always got a very robust marks in order. You say no, since he failed this one, he sat for it but he failed, he shouldn't move. No.
Okay.
He must move to the next level. So what I'm saying is that in the application of the guidelines, INEC is interpreting them or applying them undemocratically. One, I have said that if the results are cancelled, you cannot base your not declaration on the total number of registered voters in the area. Okay. Because you already know the results emanated from that area. Election has been held there.
Yes.
But if elections are not held at all in a particular unit or a ward or a local government, then you base your not declaring the results based on the total number of registered voters there, because you don't know the number of voters that will come out to vote. Okay. Again, there is another contention, which I believe was more apt. What then is the essence of publishing the number of cards collected before election, the number of PVC collected? Is to determine that this is the number of results that can come from an area, because they are published. The number of PVC collected in the State, for instance, were published, as against the number of registered voters. So if you see there was a difference between the number of registered voters and the number of people who collected the voters. It means that you cannot get a result that outweigh the number of collected PVCs in Edo State.
Okay.
So what then is the justification for INEC to base their inconclusive elections on the number of registered voters, where they display that in this area, this is the number of voters that can come from there. Oh. You have already said, for instance, 10,000 can come from Ward 10,
yes,
although 20,000 registered. Why do you base your calculation or not declaring result on 20,000 when you know that you can never get 20,000 votes from that area? What is the justification? What is the rationale? That's my argument.
Okay, we'll come back to you, but let's get the thought of a former Attorney General of Edo State, who, of course, is a politician, a former local government chairman, so he knows the nitty-gritty of the political terrain in this country. Mr. Dagbon, let's dovetail to Adamawa. The election, the inconclusive election is on. But we need to enlighten the public that initially 6 states were supposed to be involved in the inconclusive election. But INEC could not conduct Adamawa. Only 5 states were conducted because the exercise failed to hold in Adamawa as a result of a suit filed against INEC by the governorship candidate of the Movement for Restoration and Defense for Democracy, Mustafa Shaba. Shaba had sued the electoral body over the omission of his party's logo on the electoral materials used in the March 9 governorship election. Now, Idagbo, let's look at Adamawa. Are you convinced that INEC, with the huge funds, do you think INEC was really prepared for these elections?
No, I think we've all agreed, there's a consensus amongst us here from the way we have spoken that they are not prepared. I don't remember, I think it was like something like 230-something billion naira that was specifically provided for, and I hopefully released to INEC for the conduct of this election. And this figure is far outweighs the figure used in conducting the 2015 elections. So the problem with INEC should not be with financing. Okay. I'm sure they have more than the necessary finance required for them to conduct a smooth, free, fair, and transparent elections for the 2019 elections. Yeah. But the issue is just that maybe the lack manpower, or it could be deliberate sabotage. That's where many Nigerians, many politicians are anchoring the seeming incompetence of INEC in conducting elections generally in the country today. Okay. Before I go specifically to the Adamawa issue, let me thank my learned friend for giving the legal basis for the income, because I said it in my last program here, I came with the Electoral Act and I couldn't find the term inconclusive, but he has now offered me because I am not aware, because I have not had the benefit of looking at INEC guidelines. Yes. And I agree with what he has said. A guideline made pursuant to a law, at best in law, is a subsidiary legislation, and subsidiary legislation cannot overtake the main legislation. Yeah. And if there's any conflict between a subsidiary legislation and the main legislation, the subsidiary legislation is null and void to the extent of that conflict. Okay. We will talk of when the main legislation that guides elections in this country is actually the Constitution, not just because the electoral itself was made pursuant to the Constitution. Okay. So if that concept of inconclusive elections is derived from a mere guideline of INEC, I will be surprised. It means that there may be, we should expect very positive results from the various tribunals, because it's not going to stand. Now, why will INEC that had 4 years, like Pastor Sagede said, to prepare for a general election, go ahead, prepare, and omit the name of a political party? Because before now, they knew the number of political parties that were contesting for the presidency, for example. I think they told us about 70. Okay. In fact, I had difficulty identifying my party logo on the ballot paper that day, because there was a proliferation of parties and logos. I think they had 3 rows. We've never had that much political party contested since I became active as a politician in 1998. Yeah. So it shows the incompetence. It showed some whimsical, some capricious disposition on the part of INEC to make such a blunder. But there have been previous court decisions. If they omit your party logo, I think it was ABN in 2015, there was another political party whose party logo was omitted. If INEC was serious, the omission of that party logo is not enough for them to postpone that election in Adamawa. It is just that they are not ready, they are not serious. What is the position with Rivers State today? With Rivers, because we still don't know who the governor of Rivers State is.
Yeah, INEC has given a date that they'll go on with
to collate, a date to collate or a date to conduct.
They will tell us.
Oh, okay, they will tell us because I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. Rivers.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is also the first time in this country that we are conducting, at least under this republic, that we are having this impasse across the length and breadth of it. In 2015, the elections were conducted, and within 48 hours, maximum 72 hours, we knew the governors that had won in their respective states, and we know that President Jonathan had lost, and Buhari had won, and the phone call had been graciously made by President Jonathan to President Buhari. So, for me, President Professor Mahmoud Yakub has failed the nation as INEC chairman. And like I posited the other day, it should wind up with these elections between our 2023, because before we know it will be 2023 again, there will be another round of elections. I just hope his tenure is not extended. I hope another INEC chairman will be appointed. Looking back in retrospect, if you are to compare him with the 2015 Professor Atari Jega did a better job in managing INEC and in managing the elections. When he postponed the elections about 2 weeks or 3 weeks to the election, all of us cried and condemned him. But eventually, the 2015 elections, they were fairer, they were much more credible. Any impartial observer watching it had the confidence that we were close to getting it right.
Yeah.
I think 2019 election is a distraction, is a minus. It's like we took one step forward in 2015. In 2019, we have taken 3 steps backwards. The Adamawa situation, I believe, is unfortunate, and I believe it was a cover for INEC to show their incompetence, to show their lack of preparedness in conducting the general elections in 2019.
Thank you. Joseph Osagede, looking at Adamawa, the election is on. We expect the process to end by 2 p.m. Fintiri was leading before. Yes, we have it now. Fintiri of the PDP was leading ahead of Jibril Abindo of the APC. You can see the margin there, but it was declared inconclusive. But they couldn't conduct when they were to conduct others because of a suit that was instituted against INEC. But that has been vacated. That's the reason why the inconclusive election is being conducted today. What are you expecting from the Adamawa situation?
Yeah, before I go on to what I'm expecting, let's look at that that court action, that suit that came in.
Okay, from Shaba.
It was ex parte.
Okay.
And ex parte motion, the lawyers will tell you is allowed.
And ideally, the judge have granted an ex parte motion to stop an election that was already on. Yes, I did.
Now, the man, even the man himself, Shaba, said his logo was omitted, so they should not collate the results from Tafawa Balewa. Now, you just imagine that could be an afterthought, and it could be a child's play. It could be somebody who is just using that party to stall that whole election process. Because how would the president say, because my logo was not in the ballot box, you should stop collecting the results of one local government? He would have said, look, stop the entire election because my logo was not there. And he should have done that before the election. But coming after the elections are taking place to now stop them from collecting the results from one local government talks too much of itself. But coming to the role of INEC, again, I want to align myself with what Mr. Dahabo said. INEC and its chairman have shown clearly that they were not prepared for this election. And they don't even have what it takes to take Nigeria to that level where we expect them to be. They ought to have sat down and planned well. Even when they postponed the election, people thought, oh, maybe this people, they have learned some mistakes. They are going to get it right this time. But to my mind, they still never got it right. How do we avoid such things as we saw in Adamawa? INEC should be very careful. INEC should know that if you have XYZ number of political parties, and they have indicated their willingness to participate in the elections by submitting a name of their presidential candidate, such person, or their gubernatorial candidate, or even their senatorial candidate, such party's logo ought to feature in the ballot paper. And when you fail to do that, then it now becomes a matter between you and that party. You have to write to acknowledge that, oh, this is an error, please, we will correct it in subsequent elections, but we are indeed sorry, rather than hold the entire state to ransom because of that.
Yeah.
Finally, I'd like to also think aloud here that INEC has so much ground to maneuver, and the laws should be such that they should be restricted in certain areas. I'm not a lawyer, but I think that Nigeria can pass bills and enact laws that will help INEC to know their limits, to know that, look, once elections have been conducted in a state or in a local government or in a polling unit, you do not have the right to cancel it. Let that be the responsibility of the tribunal. But if you think it didn't meet the requirements of law, perhaps the card reader didn't work or something, you cannot say, okay, because of all these reasons, please, we cannot conduct this election here. When those elections have been conducted and results have been collated, and you have announced at the polling unit who the winner is, then what right do you now have to now cancel the result or cancel that election at the higher level? I think the law should be very, very clear on that. And like I said, if the total number of persons involved in such cancellation does not amount to 25% of those who collected PVCs in that area, then INEC should not draw us back by cancelling such elections.
Okay, thank you, Joseph Sagede. Daoud, Adamawa, your comments?
Well, the elections are ongoing in Adamawa.
Yes.
We are aware that a candidate is already leading. We hope the whole thing goes smoothly. But my worries, you see, prior to the elections,
yes,
there were feelers that elections may be staggered, and some were debunking that. What are we seeing now? There were worries, there were insinuations, there were rumors, there were statements that the electoral umpire may stagger the elections. And let me just deviate or digress a little. That Rivers was specifically named. I am still worried. What is happening in Rivers State? Why can't I don't know. The people there, or those who prevented people from, they are stronger than the Nigeria country to put the place in order and collate results. Just to put the record straight. It's results they want to collate, not to conduct. Because they suspended collation of results days and weeks after they have not collated results. What is the situation there? What is the emergency situation in Rivers? You see, the two contending political parties, if we like it or not, are APC and PDP. Unfortunately, APC is not featuring the candidate there. Well, what's the problem there? Now, look at the results in Adamawa. A party was already leading. Then all of a sudden, issue came up, and they cannot proceed. You see, the courts are there. INEC is overreaching itself.
Okay.
The result could have been declared. Any party who feels dissatisfied, go to the tribunal and see it out. Because now you are causing more problems, more danger. If you look at, I'm just taking an overview.
Yes.
If you look at Kano, sir, the rerun in Kano, the number of persons that were killed, they are unimaginable. For elections of 4 years, killing Nigerians. Because thugs now have the power, they now deploy all their resources to that few areas to go and cause mayhem. And a lot of persons were killed. You allow that for a position that is transient, even human life is transient, you allow people to be wasted. I think INEC should do a rethinking of those electoral guidelines. They are not laws, they are just guidelines. That guidelines, if it was well intended before when they were made, they have now overstayed their essence. they are now causing more danger. Now, more resources have been wasted now. You have wasted a lot of resources in reconducting these elections. Apart from that, you have exposed the electorates, the people, to danger. Yes. And you have wasted a lot of resources. Now you will deploy almost even double of what you deployed initially. With what resources? See, the electoral guidelines have overstayed their essence. I am against the electoral guidelines, which says that if a person have already, for instance, what was the essence of not declaring the APC winner in Plateau when the man was already leading with 45,000 votes? You don't declare him. The man was leading the PDP candidate Oseni with already 45,000, and the area which elections either cancelled or not held was just 47,000. How do you think, for even if anything to the contrary, the other man will just score 47,000 and the other one will score 0? What are you thinking of? So there are things you rationalize within yourself.
Yes.
A man leading with already 45,000 votes, then you say you were conducting a rerun in that area. And if you look at what happened there that day, because you wanted to get, what result was gotten from there? Little results. So to me, INEC should do a rethink. Okay. They should review their electoral guidelines, and the politicians should try this in the Supreme Court or in the tribunal. Yeah. We are arguing that these guidelines should be struck out as offensive to the Electoral Act and offensive to the parent law, the Constitution, and offensive to our democratic practice. Because as I told you earlier, any system, any electoral system a country is operating must be derived from its Constitution and the type of political electoral system they are practicing. Again, in Nigeria, we are practicing the federal system and presidential system of government. We are not practicing the proportional representation. So you have taken our Constitution outside the presidential system of government and make it a proportional representation, where we are now looking for the number of votes received in an area for you to declare an election. It's offensive to our practice. That is not what our Constitution provides. Our Constitution provides for a presidential system of government that recognizes the plurality system of elections. Okay. Now, when you bring in the Electoral Act and the electoral guidelines, they have taken Nigeria away from the presidential system of government and the plurality system. They now take you to the second ballot or the proportional representation, where you now base your election or the number of votes received in an area to determine. No, the Constitution didn't say so. The conditions the Constitution states are clear. If a candidate didn't score 25%, it will text. Then you will call what we have supplementary elections. I want to even tell you that the word rerun also is not in the Constitution. The rerun, that word rerun, is not there, and it shouldn't be used. All you can do is to have supplementary elections. But in an area where you do second ballot, you do a runoff. But we don't do second ballot here, because the second ballot, the first must be majority. What do you call it? You have a percentage you must score. Okay. But we don't practice such system. Now the electoral guidelines have not taken us to that system of second of a runoff. We don't practice it. What we practice is that areas where elections were not held, you could do supplementary elections in those areas to enable a candidate to be declared, if any. But not where elections have been held. You now base it on the number of registered voters there. Okay,
thank you, Sonny Daudu. That's very explicit.
Maybe in addition, our Constitution and our democratic practices provides for simple majority.
Simple majority.
To win or lose any election is simple majority. Okay. But in the executive elections for the presidency and the governors, only in those two, then there's an additional, and I think it was devised because of our multi-ethnic and multicultural nature for spread. Okay. Otherwise, without that qualification of spread, 10 states in the north can vote for somebody and he will become president all over the whole of Nigeria. And that's why the framers of our Constitution made that provision that to be declared a president, you must score 25%, at least 25% of the votes in 2/3 of the state. Yes. It became an issue in Awolowo and Shagari 1983, or one constitutes 2/3 of the states, of 19 states there. Then in the governorship, you must also score 25% or at least 25% of the votes in 2/3 of the local government area.
Okay.
Local government areas. All other elections is simple majority. You can become a senator with one vote. It's because it's simple majority. I remember I participated as an official in an election in Ovia Northeast to elect at the party level, to elect a representative of the party. And a very good friend of mine lost with one vote. By the time the votes were counted, one was like 340, the other one was like 341. Yes, he lost the chance of being the candidate of the party for the House of Representatives. In fact, in Ovia Northeast, it has happened twice, or at least I witnessed one.
Okay.
So what we practice is simple majority in this country. If, like you said, that Plateau State example you gave convinces me that INEC is not working in the interest or in favor of one political party. INEC is just incompetent. Because the ruling party there was Lalong. And one would have expected with leading with 45,000 margin, and the area that was affected with 47,000 votes, they should have declared it. Because like Iradi said, there is no way out of that 47,000 votes, if all of them were to come out, that the Lalong will not score some votes.
Yes.
So INEC is just simply incompetent, or was incompetent and poorly prepared for these 2019 elections, and should be condemned by all Nigerians, irrespective of your political coloration.
Yeah, but before we let you go, you need to comment on this. Now, looking at the inconclusive elections in the 5 states already conducted, Sokoto, Bauchi, Benue, Kano, and Plateau states. Now, the results are out. We saw the upsets. We saw what happened in Bauchi, where the incumbent lost, and he congratulated the winner. We saw where the incumbent in some states retained their seats after the election, the rerun. Now, are you satisfied with the outcome of the results in those 5 states?
Well, if I say I'm satisfied or not satisfied, it's subjective.
Okay.
But for me, I know the governor of Bauchi very well. I've had the privilege of being his guest in Yakari Game Reserve.
Okay.
He's a lawyer too, like we are here.
Yeah.
And I expected so much from him. And I believe for him to have lost as an incumbent first-time governor, it means he didn't meet the aspirations of his people. But that's the essence of democracy. People should lose elections if they don't perform. And that's why I'm so happy that Seyi Makinde of PDP won in Oyo State. Because Ajimobi, the governor of Oyo State, is one arrogant, standoffish person who thought that being governor was synonymous to being God Almighty. Even though he had the privilege of running 2 terms, but he couldn't produce a successor. There was an event that the governor was invited to in Oyo State. And naturally, simple courtesy, because no law says when a governor or a president comes into a hall, everybody must stand up. No law is convention. The worst that can happen, protocol officer can excuse you if you choose not to stand up. And some people, about 4 persons didn't stand up. The MCs was doing the introduction, and the governor seized the microphone from the MC. He became the MC himself and started lambasting and abusing the 4 people who didn't stand up. And said, look, even Obas were there, Obas stood up. Chiefs were there, Bales were there, they stood up. And these 4 people must be Araoko. In Yoruba, Araoko means village people, villagers that didn't stand up. That he as governor had come here and everybody must stand up. For me, he got what he deserved. Bauchi governor got what he deserved. Imo State got what he deserved. That is the essence of democracy. When you are elected, you have to meet the yearnings and aspirations of your people. If you don't meet it, you lose. We copied the American federal presidential system. In the US, it has almost become a convention. The 2 major parties, they win the presidency. After 2 terms, they lose. The Democrats, they were there, Obama, 8 years. In spite of the popularity of Hillary Clinton, she won the popular vote, but she lost the electoral college. At the end of the day, you have a President Trump now. President Trump is behaving like a typical Nigerian president. Okay. All of us thought these midterm elections, he will lose a lot of ground. Yes, he lost the House, but he won the Senate. We are hoping now that in 2 years' time, he will lose. But the American, if you look at the historiography of American presidential elections, as unpopular as you think he is outside of America, he will win. And after the next second term of 4 years, the Democratic Party probably will win. So for me, I am comfortable with the outcome.
Okay.
A political party or office holder should not perpetuate themselves in office when they don't perform. If you perform, you retain the trust of your people, they vote for you a second time. A second time is not a right. It's not a given that you were elected for first time, second time you must have it. No, it's not must. This must be a consequence of performance. Okay. If you don't perform, then you are voted out and somebody else will be voted in. We must keep doing it until we get it right, because ultimately nobody has monopoly of knowledge, nobody has monopoly of governance issues. Yeah. There are 1,001 persons who can be very, very good governors. Okay. If you have the opportunity of being good governor, you don't govern well, then you should go. So I support the election results, and I think it's democratic.
Okay, Pastor Joseph Sagede, you differ?
Yeah, well, slightly, because when you look at what happened in Kano,
okay,
I want us to zoom our searchlight on Kano.
Okay, the Ganduje and
yes,
yeah, okay.
You know, Kano became the battlefield, and there was a time Kwakwaso came out to say that as early as 6 in the morning, all the polling units had been taken over by unknown thugs, and that he was sure that people came in from outside Kano to come and vote. Now, why would such things happen? How can we explain that kind of scenario? Yeah. Where people by 6 o'clock are already armed and they are the polling units driving away everybody and writing results? Well, it shows also that the political class, you know, we are putting too much pressure on INEC. The political class, they don't mind and they don't give a hoot what it costs them to retain power or to get power. And not all of them are able to use that power for the general good of the people of the state. So you find it so difficult to understand why they are so desperate to hold on to power, and when you have that power, you are not able to do well with it. If power gives you the opportunity to help your people and, you know, lift them up from a level to a higher level, you must not use it to impoverish them. You must not use it to suffer them. Why would someone allow people to be killed just for you to have transcendent power for 4 years, and you want to ride on the blood of human beings? I think that's a little bit.
Probably that was not the intention of Ganduje of Kano. No.
It may not be his direct intention. Okay. But that you have people who are ready to come out and do such things for you. That you cannot claim ignorance of all that happened that day. I mean, it's part of the side effects of allowing inconclusive elections to be part of our history. If that election had been concluded that day, we wouldn't have had such bloodshed. You know, so I think that the political class will need to go back to its drawing board and avoid this situation where we want to win by all means. Okay. We want to kill people. We want to maim just to show that we're in power. But again, if you look at the rate at which the political fortunes of the two parties, you know, changed immediately after the presidential election, yes, then you begin to think what really happened in the presidential election. Could it be that there was total connivance by all the northern elements to return Buhari, after which we now go to the battlefield to go and battle it out on our own? Because if you look at the result from Kano, for instance, 1.5 million to one party and 300,000 to the other party. Yet in the gubernatorial elections, we're seeing neck to neck, 1 point something, 1 point something. Where were the other 1 point something people?
In the presidential election.
In the presidential election.
Okay. So it's the same scenario in Sokoto.
Yeah, in Sokoto. Okay. So we must learn to analyze the political fortunes of our political parties. Is APC really doing well? Are they heading for a good position where in 4 years' time they'll be able to sweep the elections again at the presidential level? Are we sure that their governors will be able to hold their states? How have they fared? So I think political historians should be able to look into these results and advise properly.
Thank you. Thank you.
One way of avoiding it is
Yes.
to hold all elections in one day, from the presidency to the House of Assembly, gubernatorial, National Assembly, everything should be held in one day,
Yes.
so that the bandwagon effect will be eliminated.
Okay. Sonny Daudu, we want to call it a day now.
Yes.
Were you surprised with what happened in the 5 states during the inconclusive election?
Before I make my comment, let me quickly align with their submissions.
Okay.
Elections should be held in one day. Elections should be held in one day. That is what Nigerians now are advocating. Now, let me make my own distinction.
Yeah.
The 5 elections that were later conducted, as our colleague has said,
Okay.
I am also dissatisfied with Kano results. And I'm urging the other party to go to court to challenge the results. The PDP candidate there was already leading with over 20,000 votes. I see no reason why INEC didn't declare him winner. Because it shows clearly that the people of Kano have rejected Gagoji on grounds of allegations leveled against him, which were also the basis of campaign against him during the electionary. And it is on that premise that they voted against him. So allow him to remain there is not in the interest of Kano people. Because what happens on that day wrong was that they barricaded the whole place and decided to allocate results just to retain him.
Something that that's an allegation. Yes, an allegation we cannot substantiate. But I have to cut it now.
Yes.
I have to cut it now. I've been told by the director that our time for this program is up. But this discussion has an offshoot. And I think something that maybe we need to extray some of the submissions on this program. We've just talked about the issue of the need for elections to be conducted one day.
Yeah.
You all agreed
unanimously
on that. And I think that's an issue we need to explore. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for being a part of today's program. And our guests, our viewer out there, I hope you've enjoyed this week's edition of 60 Minutes Nigeria. Those in the diaspora, wherever you're watching this program in the UK, in the US, I hope you've enjoyed this program. If you did, keep a date with me. By God's grace, next week, Thursday, we'll be looking at another issue and we'll be having a different set of guests on the program. Until then, bye-bye.